recording this session. Record to the cloud. Whoop. Alrighty. And we can start it. Alrighty. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you this lovely morning. Well, morning our time. Hope you're all doing well. Just waiting for some more people to trickle in. Yeah, feel free to say hi and to drop in what location you're watching this webinar from. Let's see. Hello. All right. Yeah, seeing some regional leaders in the chat. Great to see you guys. Oh no, did Terry freeze? Or are you good?
Oh, I'm here. I was looking at where everybody's from.
No
Where have I
worries.
been?
All right, Manitoba. Okay.
They're a good time.
All righty. Okay, so I guess we can get started, but first off, wanted to say welcome to everybody, alchemists, leaders, people from our community, or any newcomers just wanting to watch basically this workshop that's going to be held by our Chief of Staff, Terry, from Covalent, to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and then different aspects about it. So we normally host quite a few training sessions for our leaders, and whether you are a guild leader, Genesis founder, or a regional leader at Covalent, we really believe in continued growth and development and personal development too. So we just thought that we would open up this workshop that's actually catered to our leaders for everybody to view, so you guys can have a little bit of a, I guess, like a bird's eye view in the back of what our leaders actually get to chat with us about. But yeah, we thought it would be neat for the rest of the community to have it open. Yeah, so my name is Jacqueline. Everybody calls me Jackie. I'm the head of token marketing at Covalent. I've led the Alchemist Ambassador Program and AlchemistDAO. But yeah, I'll pass it off to Pratik to do an intro, and then we can give it to Terry to kick the workshop off.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Great to see you in good numbers. My name is Pratik. I look after marketing and growth at Covalent, and also, the marketing and growth guild at the AlchemistDAO. Pretty excited about this workshop, and yeah, let's pass it on to Terry. Over to you.
Awesome. Right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for having me. I'm going to share my screen here so we can go straight to it. I see people coming from all over the world, which is super exciting. I'm trying to catch where everybody's from. Let me just share my screen here. Oh, hang on. Now I'm having a disaster all of a sudden.
It happens sometimes, but keep letting us know where you're coming from. We see people coming from Turkey, from Ukraine, Germany, India. That's awesome. Switzerland. Woo!
Oh, sorry, guys. Of course, my system's reset my preferences, right? So
it's all good.
This morning, this has happened.
All right, it's all good. Kazakhstan. All right, we got China and America. Okay, we're still seeing some more people come in. It's okay. It gives people more time to come in.
You guys can't see my screen, hey? Oh my goodness.
Not yet. It's all good. Let's see. I can imagine everybody's excited for the holidays, right? Okay, let's see. Oh, I see Aryan, Pink, Pal. Welcome, leaders. Okay, from Nigeria. The holiday that never comes. Yeah. We normally talk about how with crypto it's a bit difficult because it's 24/7. It never sleeps, but it's always good to find that balance, especially in this industry where things are constantly changing. Yeah, we talk about this to the leaders all the time. Still having some difficulty, Terry?
Yeah, like my whole thing is reset, of course, right now. I can't believe it.
It's all good. If you're having issues, maybe you can pass the presentation to me and then I can share it from my side and then you can tell me when to change screens.
Sure.
Oh, we have somebody watching from midnight from their place right now. We have Lou. Lou, where are you right now? Indonesia. Well, it's 8 a.m. here. Oh my gosh, yes. The siren. I live near a hospital, so
Jackie, I just send that to you. I just
okay,
shared that with you on my
perfect.
Google Drive.
All right.
What's so funny, guys, is what we're going to be talking about today is improvisation as well in entrepreneurship. So this is perfect. This was deliberate.
No worries. Okay. Um, let's see.
I just
Okay,
got
you
this
guys ready
MacBook
for
as well,
this?
Jackie. We were just talking about sending computers back, so this one's going straight back.
It's all good. It's Terry's first time giving a presentation to Alchemist, so I appreciate everybody for on their patience. Okay, perfect. I have it. You guys ready for
Sure.
this? We're gonna start. Okay, let me know.
Yeah, I'll
Let me
tell
know
you
when
when
you
to
guys
move
can see
across.
it.
All right,
Okay.
we got there. Okay, good morning, guys. Thanks very much for having me today. So my name is Terry Williams. I'm Chief of Staff at Covalent. Chief of Staff, I know, is one of those positions that perhaps not everybody's heard of, and what the heck is a Chief of Staff and what does it do? The Chief of Staff, essentially my role is I report directly to the CEO, and I operate kind of as an extension of the CEO when it comes to covering and managing performance management across the departments. So what happens in startup companies like this, every department is moving so quickly and growing so fast. For example, Covalent has grown by 40 people in, I don't know, 9 months or something, all with new projects that are changing all of the time. It's very difficult to manage the performance, the resources, the tools, the time, information, decision-making that these department heads are making. So I operate essentially as like an air traffic controller where I make sure that I can see all things at all times, and then I adjust what needs to be adjusted to help the departments get to where they need to be. So how did I get to here then? So my background, I'll give you guys a little bit on my background. I'm a former British soldier. I was a British soldier for 6 years. I did my tour of Afghanistan in 2010, where I was first line vehicle support and a top cover machine gunner for a landmine clearance party in the Helmand province of Afghanistan. Later on, my career specialty switched and I ended up working in riot control, supporting the United Nations missions, which operate outside of Cyprus. So what that means is I've had some quite unique experience when it comes to leadership in some very arduous conditions and some situations that most people in the world are not exposed to, which has helped me improve my leadership in the situations for civilian life when it comes to business operations, sales, marketing, change management, whatever it is happening within an organization, where I'm able to execute on that typically quite well. Hopefully it's, and that'll continue going forwards. So what I want to talk to you guys about today, Jackie, if you just hit next for me there, I'll run through the agenda here. So I want us to revisit what is AlchemistDAO and what is it that we're trying to work on here. This is a very unique concept, and we'll explore this concept a little bit more as well. It's easy for people to say, well, you know, the idea of DAOs and blockchains, it's been around for a few years now, right? Like kind of like hipsters that found the indie record 2 years before everybody else. But you got to remember, for the vast majority of people in the world, this is a very new concept. And if you're new to entrepreneurship, or you're new to DAOs or business as a whole, it can be very challenging because it doesn't follow the typical ups and downs and the roller coaster track that a traditional business would. So we'll talk about finding the potential within DAOs as well. And then I want to go through 7 principles of leadership that I like to try and execute, that I've taken from a very famous Anglo-Irish explorer, Sir Ernest Shackleton, if anybody's ever heard of him, who conducted an expedition across the Antarctic. It was an absolute failure. And I want to talk to you about the 2 years that he spent with his team frozen on the ice there, and the leadership lessons that were applied. And at the end, I'll open it up to questions if anybody would like to ask me questions. So Jackie, you can hit next for me there, please. So AlchemistDAO, you guys have seen this before, but just so everybody's on the same 0 point, a community of innovative data nerds, that's you, within the covalent network, breaking barriers and creating a new economy powered by data, where we can explore aspirations, pursue queries, and shape our own future in a space where contributions become currency. Jackie, if you hit next for me there. So what does this mean for the concept of a DAO? So a decentralized autonomous organization. When something is decentralized, it immediately falls out of the typical traditions of a regular centralized business. Things are changing now. And you have to remember, this is the start of this space. This is the internet in 1989, right? Before there was mobile phone apps, before there was Tinder and Facebook and social media, which nobody could predict. It's the concept of the DAO that we're working on. So when you have new concepts like this, what it means is the answers are not always there. And it's not even that the answers are not always there. It's that the questions that are going to be asked in the future, we don't even know to ask yet. It's the whole idea of that we didn't even have cordless power tools until we sent people to space, and then we didn't have anywhere to plug the power tools in. That's how cordless power tools were invented. We didn't have smoke detectors until we were sending people to space, and we had to detect smoke very quickly in an area where that might not be possible. So sometimes the questions have not even been asked yet because we haven't got to that point. Jackie, can you hit next for me here? And so what does this mean for the potential of DAOs then? Well, we have to understand that DAOs are the new frontier of exploration. So don't think of this as like a roller coaster, like when you open a McDonald's restaurant, right? There's 10,000 McDonald's restaurants. It's a business in a box. You buy the franchise. It's all laid out for you, instructions on how to operate it, and you have constant support, and any question you've ever asked before has already been answered for the most part, right? For 99% of those questions. This is a completely unexplored river of rapids, currents, waterfalls. You don't know what's around the next bend. You don't know what you're going to get hit with yet. And you don't know what the next challenge is going to be. So remember, for that means the answers are not always obvious. And if you're new to entrepreneurship or new to business, this can be very frustrating at times, because you may end up in a situation where not everybody understands where they're going, or you think that you're going in different directions, or you think that each other's focused on the wrong thing, or you think you have the answer and the other person doesn't, when in reality, neither of you have the answer to the question. So bear that in mind, that this is not a roller coaster, what we're doing here. This is something completely unexplored. Jackie, can you hit next for me? So let's talk about navigating the unknown then, and what it means to hit something that's completely unexplored, or if you're in alien territory. So this gentleman right here, this is Sir Ernest Shackleton. He's an Anglo-Irish Antarctic explorer that led 3 British expeditions to the Antarctic. And I want to talk about his second one. And his second expedition to the Antarctic started with this little blurb right here. This was an advertisement that went into a London newspaper that simply read, "Men wanted for a hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success," which of course makes it all better in the end, right? So what kind of conditions do you think this person is going to be putting people through? Right? What kind of horrors are these people going to be experiencing? And still 27 people applied. So there's a total of 28 people went on this expedition. This was his ship, the Endurance. And what you see right here is this ship completely frozen in ice. And I'll give you guys a little bit of a background on the story here. So in late 1914, December 1914, 28 men boarded the Endurance, and they made their way down to Argentina. If you're from Argentina, shout out to you. They made their way down to Argentina and then eventually out into the Weddell Sea, where they came across a whaling station where they started to study the ice that was ahead of them. The mission was because the Norwegians, if you're from Norway, shout out to you, had already been the first people to make their way to the South Pole. Shackleton's mission was to land in Antarctica and cross the entire continent by foot. What happened was 6 weeks into leaving the whaling station, his ship became completely frozen in ice. You can see it's encapsulated all the way around. There was no way around. This is in 1914. There was no radios. There was no good warm equipment. There was no Gore-Tex. There was no modern equipment of any kind. Everybody's family who said goodbye to those people have no idea where they are. They have no idea if they're alive. The people that were supposed to meet them have no idea where they are, and nobody has any way to find them. They were in these conditions for 10 months completely frozen in ice, and they worked night and day to try and free themselves, until eventually the Endurance, their ship, actually sank beneath the ice. It was completely crushed by the ice, and it sank. There were now 28 people in minus, I don't know, 50 conditions, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, 1 million probably, where they were in the most miserable conditions possible. Nobody knew they were there, and there was seemingly no hope of how they were going to get away. Jackie, can you hit next for me? So knowing that these people were navigating the unknown, and these were very arduous conditions that they were in, and there was no certain way of how they were going to get out of it, and failure seems pretty likely, I want to talk to you about the 7 principles of leadership that Ernest Shackleton employed during his time on the ice and how he was able to help these people get home. Spoiler alert, every single person on this expedition survived, and they were there for almost 2 years. Okay, so Jackie, hit next for me. One of the first things that Shackleton put in place, and I think this is important not only for AlchemistDAO, where we can draw the parallels here, but for business as a whole, is to develop a clear and shared purpose. This doesn't mean that you know every step of the way. It doesn't even mean that you fully understand what's going to happen next. What it means is that you understand the destination, for now, the destination, and the destination will change over time. So, for example, when Ganesh and Levi founded Covalent, they knew that they wanted to make a unified API that will be able to index all blockchains so that they can change 1 billion lives. That was their goal. They didn't know every single step of how that was going to be done. And we still don't know. We still go to work every day and things have changed. Things change within AlchemistDAO. We recognize things that are working, things that are not working, and we have to adjust along the way. But what's most important is that within your teams, within your guilds, you develop a clear and shared purpose. And if you're not sure if you have that, talk to your team members privately and ask them what they think your shared purpose is and see how many different answers you get. Because if you find that you're getting very different answers on what your purpose of your guild or your organization is, then that means that every single person within that team is trying to head to a different direction. You're heading to a different place and you're never going to be aligned on what you're trying to do. So the first thing for leadership I want to put across to you guys is develop a clear and shared purpose. And from there, we can apply everything else and move forwards. Jackie, you can hit next right there. This is a huge one. So model and inspire optimism. There's going to be times when you guys are rolling through what you do at AlchemistDAO or whatever your regular jobs are or whatever business you're trying to open or operate. And there's going to be times when, honestly, guys, it's just going to be uncomfortable. It's just going to be pure hell. It's going to be long days. It's going to be sleepless nights. It's going to be worrying about what the competition is doing. It's going to be perhaps you have people coming into your team that are maybe adding a little bit of toxicity or uncertainty, and it's bringing everybody down. Whether you're a leader or a team member, modeling and inspiring optimism is crucial. This doesn't mean being ignorant or naive of what's going on around you. It means that understanding the atmosphere that you set will be crucial. If you're in a leadership position within AlchemistDAO, your team members will act how you're acting. They will respond accordingly. Everybody has things going on in their life. Everybody has challenges, and you may be getting the flashes now in your mind of your own challenges that you're getting, me included. But every day when I speak to Jackie and Pratik multiple times a week, whatever is happening there, that has to go to the side for me because that team needs me to model and inspire optimism for them. Whenever they bring problems towards me, I need to give them the correct atmosphere in that positive environment that I will find a way to bring them a solution. And I will listen to what they're saying and I will execute on whatever needs to be executed on. And I do that optimistically because that is the atmosphere that I will set. Everybody will respond to the strongest behavior that's around them. Everybody has a party pooper in their life, right? Think of that person in your life where you walk into a room, that person is there and it brings everybody else down. And it can kill groups, it can kill teams because that's all that anybody will respond to. So as the leader or even as a team member in that group, it's up to you to inspire the optimism. So Shackleton was famous for doing this. You can see the Endurance frozen in ice in Antarctica behind him. By the way, they're 1,000 miles from the nearest person. That's 1,600 kilometers if you speak new money. From the nearest person, they're in the worst freezing conditions you can imagine, and that they're playing soccer because they know it's going to lift their spirits up. It's going to bring them closer as a team. It's going to make them feel rejuvenated, and it's going to make the rest of their process easier. So model and inspire optimism always. Jackie, can you hit next for me? So build unity and commitment within your team. So this is difficult to do, right? Especially if you're decentralized. Everybody's from different countries in the world. They have different backgrounds. They have different values. And you guys come across this every day in what you do. But what you need to do is create unity within your team. You need to find the things that you have in common and bring that team closer together. As the leaders, what this means is you need to get to know your team. So write out, whenever you get a second, write out some basic questions that you know the answers to about your friends or your family members, and then answer those questions for yourself on whether or not you know those answers about your team members. Because if you don't, what that means is you have a disconnect. It doesn't mean you need to know the ins and outs of their private life. but you should certainly know what their standards are. You should certainly know what they value, what they want to achieve in their future, what you believe their skills are, what they believe their skills are, and how they would like to add value to the team. If you don't know the answers to these questions, you're going to have a divide within your team where people won't feel connected and people won't work for people that they feel disconnected for. Why are people looking forward to getting back to the office, or they like to do their town hall meetings, or they like to go out and as a Covalent, we try and go out, once a month or so into downtown Vancouver. Why do we do that? Because it brings the team together. And when you have a united team, the team will be committed on working for each other, not because they have to, but because they want to, but because they want to represent their team properly. And so you can see here with Shackleton's crew, every single person in this picture is doing something, even though they've been frozen in ice for months. You can see the researchers there still performing their experiments. This guy in the bottom left with the pipe, I'm not sure what he's doing. We call that looking busy doing nothing, I think. But the guy in the top left is definitely carrying ice so that they can break that down for water. So everybody has a commitment. They have a unified shared purpose, and there's unity being created in the team because they get close and they get to know each other. It's harder to do as a decentralized organization, but as team leaders, it's up to you to find a way to do this. I'm always open to provide suggestions. I'm sure Jackie and Pratik are open to that as well. Jackie, can you hit next for me? Okay, this one's going to be huge. So create a plan, create an alternative plan, and be flexible. Now, this is entrepreneurship all over the place, and it's definitely going to be with AlchemistDAO. There is no set answer. One of the big things in life when it comes to business or operations of any kind is you can only play the hand you're dealt. You can only play, if any of you guys play poker, you know that the decisions you make are based off the cards you have in front of you, and then what you think most likely people have around you. But the information that you know for sure is exactly what you have in front of you. This will change. So make sure that you're not getting frustrated whenever things change. We will pivot. Things will change within AlchemistDAO. Things will change within Covalent. It's our responsibility to do that. It would be a failure of leadership if we did not respond to new information. So where the information that we have right now, that card might get swapped out tomorrow. We may pursue a certain direction and figure out, actually, that's not the most effective plan. Let's pivot right slightly. Let's pursue this instead. Let's reduce the amount of projects that we're on, or let's expand the amount of projects they're on. This is responding to new information, and this is crucial in business. If new information comes to you and you don't adjust accordingly for that information, you will fail because you're going off of yesterday's plan, and it doesn't apply to the information that we have anymore. So a little story that we have right here. After the Endurance sank and the men were stranded in Antarctica, Shackleton made the decision to make a 15-day journey to get the people aboard dry land. You have to remember, these 28 crewmen were not on land. They were frozen on ice in the middle of the sea. And so the ship sank. They were able to retrieve the lifeboats. They took a 15-day journey dragging lifeboats across the ice there to get to real land. And over the course of that 15 days, the plan changed 4 times. This is not failure. This doesn't mean that Shackleton failed and had to come up with a new idea. It means that he demonstrated excellent leadership by responding to new information and ensuring that the team followed the best plan always, even if it wasn't the idea that was relevant yesterday. So look out for that. If you find yourself getting frustrated because things keep changing, you need to step back and analyze the reason why it's changing. Jackie? Yeah, make the tough decisions. This is a hard one, guys. Okay, I'm going to share a couple of examples for you of times when earlier on in my life this happened to me. Happened to me very young. There's 3 situations. Okay, I won't go on about it all day, but there's 3 that stood out. But the first 2 during my time in Afghanistan. During my time in Afghanistan, I told you I was a top cover machine gunner for a landmine clearance party for the Royal Engineers. And what happened one day on a returning convoy coming back from a place called Musakala, DC. We were going through a heavily IED'd area. So a lot of improvised explosive devices were around in this area, and we had to navigate it very carefully. The villagers in the Helmand province that were around there were aware of this, and often they had more information than us. And there was a day when a child who had 1 leg, you guys can guess the reason why he only had 1 leg, made his way across the area that we couldn't touch to steal equipment from the vehicle in front of me, directly in front of me. He was 30 yards from me. I was the machine gunner that was supposed to take care of that situation. So what do you do there? What do you do when somebody is actively stealing equipment from you, essential equipment that you need to keep your team alive and to keep the people responsible that you're responsible for in these villages safe, when somebody's stealing equipment from you and it's a child and it's in that very difficult decision? I did not make the worst decision. Of course, that child was okay. But what I'm talking about is sometimes the answer is not always clear, because people may be relying on you left and right for different reasons, and you have responsibilities in different areas, and there's going to be a tough decision to be made at some point. Another example I'll give is in the later part of my career, I was part of a riot control team that was going to be working for a United Nations operation coming out of Cyprus. And during a training event there, fortunately, this was only training, we had the most excellent plan that you can imagine. I was leading the team at that time, and I was very confident in what we were going to do. But the people that were rioting against us, there was hundreds of them this time, were a little bit more equipped than I had anticipated, and they had more Molotov cocktails than I anticipated. And both people to the left and right of me became fully engulfed in flames during that riot and had to step back and move. And I was relying on those two people to do a job for me, which I now couldn't execute. So I had to make the decision to withdraw the entire team, which meant that that riot was able to advance and they were able to take more ground. And I essentially lost that block of the city that we were training. I essentially lost that block, but I made that decision because I needed to keep as many people safe as I could. And that collateral damage from those buildings in that village was the decision I needed to make to lose that. And it's not always easy to do. And you're going to get it with an AlchemistDAO as well. There's going to be times when those decisions are not obvious. What's important is that you make the best decision you can, and whatever you do, you pull the trigger and you move forwards. Once you've made a decision, you have to see it through, execute on it, adjust if the information changes, but don't be 1 foot in. Whatever decision you make sure you don't half-ass it. People are looking to you to make the tough decisions, and there's going to be times when you need to do that. Jackie? Okay, be prepared to improvise. Okay, we'll bring it up on a happier note here. You can see that sled dog right there. He's got a little sled house made out of snow. So there were, I believe it was 50 sled dogs went on the expedition with Shackleton. And after the ship sank, they had a huge loss there. They had a huge loss. They'd lost that crucial piece of equipment, which was going to get them home once the ice had thawed out, but they had to start improvising. So they took as much equipment as they could. They took panels from the ship to make skis out of. They took the sled dogs off and made them little houses there out of the snow. And they repurposed a lot of the equipment that they had on the ship. Where this applies to you guys for AlchemistDAO is to understand that because you're in a fairly new concept here, the answers are not always there. If we go back to that idea of that rushing river with the rapids and the waterfalls, and we don't know what's around the next bend, sometimes you have to cross that river. And sometimes you're going to be the first person to that river. That doesn't mean whatever plan you put in place will always be the plan, whatever the example is going to be. It just means that if you need to strap 2 planks of wood together, or all hold hands, or do whatever you can to get across that river, cross that bridge for the first time, so that you can keep making ground and then look back and build a bridge, the metaphorical bridge of whatever we're going to say here for the rest of the team, that's fine. But understand that sometimes you're going to have to improvise. The resource, the equipment, the team may not be put in place to come across the challenge that you discover when you're in this new frontier of operating within DAOs. Be prepared to improvise. Once you've got through it the first time, we can look back and we can make a plan from there. But improvisation is going to be huge. Once again, guys, if you come across a situation where there is no set answer, there's no set textbook routine of what to do, this is not a failure. It likely just means that nobody's come across this issue yet, and you're the fortunate person that gets to come up with the answer and relay it back to the rest of the team. Jackie? The last one is going to be to have faith. This is the 7th principle. Faith is different to optimism. Optimism is what you outwardly project when you get onto your calls with your team. Optimism is how you make them feel, is how you make them understand that you have control of a situation, even if in your mind you're still thinking about what you're going to do. And optimism is how you set the environment. Faith is internal. It's internal into yourself. So understand and have faith in your abilities. You guys know what you're talking about. Your expertise and you're experts in certain fields. Even if you're only newer to that field, you'll still have an understanding of something that somebody else won't, whether it's marketing, sales, operations, engineering. Even if you're just the best person to be the office manager, if you can keep that place more organized than anyone else, and you can keep on top of the third-party vendors that are coming in to do the garbage and the security, or whatever you do, have faith in your abilities that you'll be able to execute your job well, and have faith that there is a solution. There's a solution to everything. Okay, we've put people on the moon. We put people into space, into the oceans. We've done incredible things as human beings. The idea of blockchains themselves are phenomenal. There's solutions to everything. The answers may not be there, but have faith in your abilities, have faith that the solution is there, and have faith in your team to execute. If you lose that faith, you won't execute and we won't go anywhere. We'll just keep going around in circles and you won't want to be the person to push. So have faith. We might not be there yet, but we will get there. Jackie, you can hit next for me. So after 21 months of being frozen in Antarctica, Shackleton made his way. After 10 months, the ship sank. They made their way across the ground to a place called Elephant Island. From there, I believe it was seven of them jumped into the lifeboats again, and they made their way north through the sea, eventually finding a whaling station with people on that land that were very surprised to see them. And a few months later, they were able to get a steamship back to Elephant Island to pick up the rest of the team. For almost 2 years, 28 people were frozen in Antarctica with no way home. Their ship had sank. They had no modern equipment, and it was almost certain that they were going to die. Shackleton executed all of these principles of leadership, ensuring that he maintained optimism within the team. He maintained faith in his abilities, his team's abilities. He was able to improvise, and he was able to keep unity and commitment within that team. Because he executed on those principles, 21 months later, every single member of that team was rescued. 28 people were stranded in Antarctica, and 2 years later, 28 people were rescued. And Shackleton is quoted as saying, "Through endurance we conquer," endurance being the name of his ship as well. And I think this is a perfect example that parallels with what you're trying to do in AlchemistDAO, where you're in a very uncomfortable environment sometimes where the answers are not there. But if you keep going and you execute these principles, you will make progress in what you're doing here. Jackie, you can hit the next slide. So that seems short and sweet as I was going through it. So thank you very much for your time and what I wanted to explain to you there. You can see that Chilean, anyone from Chile, shout out to you because you rescued these 28 men from Antarctica. That's the steamboat there that came to Elephant Island to pick up the rest of them. And they were returned to their families. Their families almost certainly thought these people were dead because they didn't see them in 2 years and there was no way of contacting them. And all 28 of them were rescued in the end. Jackie, you can hit the next slide for me. So that's it for the 7 principles of leadership team of what I wanted to put across for AlchemistDAO. If you guys have any questions that you want to throw at me, I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. I'm not an expert historian, but I'll give you whatever answers I can with related to Shackleton or from my experience in itself.
All right. That was amazing. I learned so much. It's crazy. I feel like, shout out to entrepreneurs or those wanting to get into that space. Something that I've told leaders quite a bit is that it's difficult. It's a difficult journey, but you learn so much. But having those key leadership traits that you talked about is, it definitely hits to home. But
sometimes it's hard, right? You want to look behind you and you want to get the answer from somebody else, but it's not there. You guys are doing things for the first time here.
Yeah, my at this last VC that I worked at, it's kind of like, you get thrown in to the unknown and it's just like you sink or swim and you have to figure things out on your own. So it takes like a different level of characteristics. But if you have any questions, just use the Q&A option that you'll find at the bottom. We have some popping up. But okay, so first question for you, Terry, from Ariane is how to bring your team on the same page when they are lost every time.
Okay. So there's 2 things for this, I guess. So the first one being is to set expectations 2 ways, right? So as team leaders, it's easy for us to set the expectations of what we want in our team members. They need to execute on this at this time, this on this time, this on this time. What's equally as important is what your team members can expect from you. So how reliable are you? If you say that you have a weekly one-on-one with that team member, you need to have that weekly one-on-one every week. As soon as you start to skip it, you miss it 1 week, then it becomes 2 weeks. It's what we call broken window theory. As soon as somebody smashes the window in the Maserati, everyone else thinks it's okay to steal the tires and break the other windows and take the interior or whatever. So that integrity of what you're putting across to them needs to stay the same. Once you're able to set those 2-way expectations, everybody knows where they stand and they become aligned, and that unity is stronger because what's most important is teams just want to know where they stand with each other. So that's one way. The other way I would say to bring commitment and unity when people are lost is to find out what the reason is. Lots of times we go into things and we start to make these action plans, right? So say if you have, let's use a classic example. If you have a team member that's not performing well, we go away as leaders and we think about this person's not performing well, and we create this whole action plan that's 6 pages long. It's going to be executed with these timestamps, and we go and we try and implement it, right? But we don't even know the reason why that person is not performing well. It may just be that their grandmother just died the day before and it's going to last a week and they'll be okay. Maybe they're sick. Maybe there's something else going on at home. Maybe they don't believe in your vision, or maybe they got a better offer from another company. But the point is, we can't execute on a plan unless we know what the reason is. So when this comes to having a team which is loose on commitment, you need to ask those questions that I talked to you guys about before. Ask them what they think the purpose is. Ask them what they think your most important objective is. Ask them what it looks like, what they think it looks like when you're winning in your department, in your project, what you're working on, and find out what these answers are. If your team members are all giving you very different answers, what that's telling you is that they are not aligned on what you're trying to achieve. And the reason they're not aligned on what you're trying to achieve ultimately comes down to us as the leaders, is because we haven't solidified that. So the first step is to get everybody on the same page, make sure that they're aligned in what the purpose is, what your main objective is, and how they measure whether or not you're winning. Once they're aligned on that, you can create an action plan of how you move forwards.
All right, that was awesome. Second question is, are there some tips to find the right members for a team? Sometimes the biggest problem is having members that don't have the same vision, and that makes teamwork hard.
Yeah, so I'll try not to repeat the same thing with regards to expectations, but lots of times when you're finding new team members, this needs to be established right from the start. What's great about DAOs and even businesses as a whole is that we should celebrate the different personalities, backgrounds, and values that people have. It's, you know, people that can be very different and work very well together. What's most important is that you're united in your values and your vision. Now, you mentioned there, what if the vision is not the same? Well, we need to set that right from the start, right? So if that's the interview process that you go through, or your selection process for how people come on your team, you need to share the vision of what you're aiming for within your guild, within your DAO, within your organization, and ensure that they're aligned with that. If they're not aligned with that from the start, it's going to be like herding cats. You'll never get them to where you want them to be because they want to be somewhere else. So when it comes to aligning people on the vision, that needs to be done right from the start. If you guys are not aligned on your purpose and the direction that you're heading, it's okay. It's not going to work. It's not a bad thing. It just means you guys are thinking about different values.
And it brings me back to this book called From Good to Great by Jim Collins, where he talks about like when you have a bus, ensuring that you get the wrong people off the bus and the right people into the bus, but ensuring you get the right people in the right seats, and then following the discipline after that. So yeah, from the beginning, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
but
that's
I recommend that
right,
book.
Jackie. You've 100% got it right. Right people in the right seats and on the right bus. And I think there's something that people say, right? We say, get the wrong people off the bus. And I try not to put it that way. It's more like get them on their right bus, right? It just means they're not supposed to be on this bus. They're probably excellent at something else. Just get them on another bus. You know, your bus is heading in a certain place. You know the people you need. You know what seats they need to be in, and you need to establish that early, like Jackie said, so that you can move forwards on the right foot. And if you get to a point where you just have the wrong person on the bus, just get them off, put them on another bus, and keep going. It's make the tough decisions, like we said.
All right. Other question. There's like more questions lined up, so hope you're okay to answer them. So we have another one. Do you think Shackleton and his men would have survived if every person had to vote every time a decision had to be made?
Yeah, so it's not, because I wasn't there, I can't really give an educated answer on that. What I would say is what is being considered is strong leadership. Strong leadership, something to consider is everybody's opinion, is everybody's thought process. So pay attention to some of the good leaders in the world. You know, I know you guys don't get to sit in rooms too often with, like, say, Ganesh and Adrian. They're two fantastic leaders. But what those two will do very well is they will listen to everybody else's thoughts. They'll go around the entire table and get everybody's opinion first, which is essentially a vote. Right? It's a vote of the action that everybody wants to take, and providing that action is strong and it makes sense and it's aligned with the values of the organization, whatever gets the most votes or whatever seems to be the consensus most of the time is what we're going to push forwards on. If you're concerned that the voting system around DAOs is going to take you down the wrong direction, first of all, you guys need to get aligned on what you want that direction to be. What's the purpose, right? I know we keep coming back to it, but if you're worried that, say, half the team or 2/3 of the team are going to vote against what you want, well, what is it that you want compared to what they want? Ultimately, where are you trying to get to? And what kind of impact is this decision going to make? Is this going to be a minor decision? Are we saying take the left path up the mountain instead of the right path up the mountain, but ultimately we're just trying to get to the top of the mountain? Or are we saying change mountains? Because that's a significant decision, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about the voting system, because as long as most people are aligned on where they're going, you will usually keep going in the right direction. What I would be more concerned about is if everybody is trying to get to the same place, not take the same route.
All right, perfect. Another one is, what is the best way to communicate your vision, in your opinion?
The best way to communicate the vision. Yeah, I think it needs to be done early, but it needs to be done continuously. So a strong way to do this is if you have a set of core pillars or a set of core values, build your vision around that, because it's reference points that people can relate to, right? So we know within Covalent, we have a value of ownership, and we go back to it so that we can empower our team members to take ownership of what they do, because it keeps them aligned on the vision. So Jackie, great example here, you're on my screen. Jackie has ownership of the Alchemist project, right from the start. He's been able to build this thing with all of you guys and add on to it. But that holding on to that principle of ownership means that she can hold on to that bigger vision easier, because it's like a direction to go to. It's something to hold on to as we keep revisiting the other vision. Or another value we have is first principles. This idea of it ain't broke, don't fix it, doesn't work for us. If it's working, but there's a way that we can do it better, then we'll pivot, even if it seems like it's not broken. What that means is we just have that central point of the vision all the time, but we cement that with these values, and everything we put in place reflects one of these values. Every time we do a gratitude at the end of the week, we do in our Slack groups, we cement it to these values. So the best way to put across a vision is to constantly have it reinforced by having a set of 4 or 5 values that reflect what you're doing, and people are attached to those values every day.
All right. Another question is, how do we cope with team members that are only interested in money? They are only active when they will be paid for a task. From Anonymous.
From Anonymous. Yeah, look, this is one of those tough situations, right? So first of all, I'm sure that you do believe that they're only interested in money. Maybe they told you that, but whatever the situation is, if somebody is inactive, you need to find out what the reason is. We touched on this earlier. You can't make an action plan unless you truly know what the reason is. So you guys have a vision, you have a goal, you're trying to build something, there's a direction that you're going. If somebody is only interested in money and you learn that for sure, you ask them, maybe they tell you they're only going to be active at that time. What that means is that person is not aligned with your vision. They're not aligned with your values, and they're not aligned with the direction that you're trying to go. That is completely fine, because there is another bus out there that caters to people that maybe want to work on like a freelance basis where they'll only work for rewards, and that's absolutely fine. But what it sounds like to me is if this person is not aligned with the way the rest of the team is operating, they're not the wrong person. Well, they're the wrong person for this bus. They just got to get moved to another bus, because they will forever be operating in that way, because for them it's right, but for you it's not what you see. So if that really is the case, sounds like they're on the wrong bus.
All right. What is, in your opinion, the difference between a leader and a manager?
Yeah, a manager will tell you they're a manager as soon as they can. Look out for that. Look out for people's social media, look out for people's whatever. The amount of people like to squeeze the word manager into the first 3 sentences they say is unbelievable. Yeah, a manager typically will like to direct, right? They'll just like to, assign people tasks, and it kind of becomes, I don't want to say dictatorship, but kind of like that, right? They'll just tell people what to do and expect people to execute on it, and they'll do it based on who they are. So they'll think that being, my experience, kind of bossy, or maybe they're confident in the way they speak, or they're very direct, and they'll operate like that because that's who they are. A good leader will reverse that. We adjust our operations and how we execute based on who the people are. So the way that I speak to Jackie is very different to the way that I'll speak to Adrian or Brandon. Brandon's a very different personality to Jackie, for example. Brandon, maybe he's on the call, I don't know. Brandon is, I was joking with him the other day, who runs research, is very direct, right? He talks in bullet points, he's bang, 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 but that's because what he values. He wants that information quickly, and he wants to be able to execute on it. He wants your bullet points, and he's going to go off and deliver in that way. So that's how I try and communicate with him. But Jackie's not like that. She likes to talk things out for a little bit, and get that, and we kind of discuss ideas, and we kind of build on it and flesh things out. I don't just give her a list of bullet points and say, see you next week, because that's not how she communicates, right? It wouldn't work well if I did it that way. So that's what a leader will do. A leader will listen to everybody in their team and they'll adjust how they operate with people based on who they are. A manager will stick fast in who they are and expect everybody else to adjust to them.
Yeah, I always say that there's this misinterpretation of what it means to be a leader. I feel like it's more being of service to others and putting them in a position to actually grow and progress
Right.
as an individual versus like what you want.
Right,
But
exactly.
all right. We have two other ones. So what are is the best approach to create a healthy competition within the team members or different teams?
Oh yeah, healthy competition. Okay. I think first you got to establish what people want to compete over, and you got to try and make it, because if you work in bounties or rewards, that not everybody's doing it for that way, right? But I think also first you want to see if competition is something that is valued within your team. If you're like, hey guys, we're gonna do a competition, and everybody rolls their eyes over their Zoom camera, and they're like, that's really not what I want to do right now. Yeah, it goes back to that leadership or manager question. It's like, am I doing this because I want to do this? Or am I doing this because clearly it's going to serve them well and they're excited about that? So first of all, establish on whether or not that's the right way to motivate people, because ultimately, right, that's what we're doing. We're competing because we want to try and motivate people. But if that's going to interrupt people's progress, then a competition might not be as motivating as, say, a cooperative game, a collaboration where people are going to feel empowered from bouncing off of each other's ideas and building something together. Especially if you're trying to create unity and commitment within a team, you build unity by letting people collaborate. Competition is good for producing results on an individual basis, but sometimes it can create a disconnect. So I guess that was a long answer, but I would say, first of all, establish whether or not competition is the correct way to go for your team or if it's just for you. And then second of all, you have to make sure that everybody has an absolute fair chance of winning, whatever the metrics are going to be, however it's going to be recorded, because you'll be remembered on how you execute this. And people will find the weakness in it because you've set that competition atmosphere, right? So if you're going to set a load of rules out, people are going to find the loopholes. So it's this pros and cons thing. Is the reward that you get from this competition going to be worth the drama that it might create if you put it into place? So yeah, establish if it's going to be the right thing to do for creating motivation within the team, and then make sure whatever competition you do is fair for everybody.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have a lot more questions coming in. We have 12 more minutes, Terry, so be prepared.
Okay, yeah, after that.
All right. Another one is, what if decisions have to be made and time isn't on your side to get all team members to agree? And you know that it's great for the team. How and maybe you've tried reaching out and they're delaying in like responding. Do you go for it or do you implement that decision? Like, how
Yeah.
would you go on that?
Yeah, so this will get worse the more organizations grow. The Alchemist program, what you guys are working on, is going to get bigger. People will join over time. We'll add more guilds. Covalent will get bigger. We'll probably be twice the size by this time next year. There'll be a lot of third-party companies involved, and so there's a lot of moving wheels inside of the big wheel, and not everybody's going to get back to you in good time. There's going to be times when you have to make the tough decisions and you have to improvise. So what you have to do is make sure that the decision that you're making is the best one based on the information that you have, even if that information changes tomorrow, and you have to execute, and you will have to pull the trigger sometimes and just make progress. People may have to, now that doesn't mean do that all the time. You stick to your practice, whether it's your governance practice, your voting system, or including the team members' opinions as much as you can. But if some people are being unresponsive and you need to move on it, and it's going to slow everybody else down if you don't, you have to move on it. You can make your apologies later, you can get opinions later, and you can explain the reason why later, but you have to think what is going to be the greater good for most people. If 95% of people are going to benefit from this decision, but 5% of people are not responding, you need to execute on that. Think of it as improvisation, right? So when we said about when we cross the river, you strap the two planks together, you get over that river for the first time, and then you can look back and build the bridge for everybody else, or say, sorry, you didn't get the memo. I tried sending it 3 times. Here's a bridge for you. You can come across as well.
Yeah, making those decisions can be difficult too, but that's part of
It's
being a
like the
leader.
lottery, right? It's like the lottery, right? You got to be in it to win it. Okay. If you're not active, you're gonna lose it.
All right. Another good question actually is, how do you know if you are not an effective leader?
The telltale signs will usually be that this is like, when you hear people say, like, oh, I don't think I'm a good dad or something. My friend said this to me the other day. He's a fantastic dad. But you will know from the optics of what's going on outside. So there's a few different ways you can measure, right? Your OKRs will drop if you're not an effective leader. There will be distance within the team. You'll find that people are not aligned on what they're doing. Maybe people will just stop showing up for you. There'll be a lot of telltale signs. It won't be internal. We'll always have these thoughts about ourselves, everybody, me included, because we want to be the best person that we can be, because we want to be able to deliver on what we do. But most of the time, it doesn't come from what's happening internally. It's not signs that we see within ourselves that we're being a bad leader. It's whatever is happening outside. It's how the team members are responding. Is your department slowing down other departments? Is your department the last one to execute? Do you have a high churn rate of team members? Are people coming into your team and then trying to get out right away? All of these signs will be there for you, but that doesn't mean that you're sentenced to life on this idea of being a bad leader. It's just you're not a bad leader. You're just a person that maybe hasn't been exposed to these situations before, right? Nobody's born having read the whole book. Nobody's born having the right answers. You need to learn along the way. What's more important is that you recognize areas that you're failing at, and then you work on those situations so that it doesn't happen again. And then all of a sudden, you're a slightly better leader in that regard. So even if you're finding that maybe there's an area that you're not necessarily a great leader at, that doesn't mean it's a life sentence for you. It's an area to work on.
Mm. How do you keep your team motivated when there are conflicts and differences?
Yeah, okay. So conflicts and differences will always come up within organizations. So motivation, we say, happens right from the very start, right? Get everybody aligned. We've already covered this. Make sure you know the direction that you're going and move from there. Wherever there's a situation where conflicts and differences are coming into the team, that needs to be removed from the team right away, because toxicity, poison, negativity, that will spread very quickly. And one of the rules in life, guys, whether we like it or not, is misery loves company. Okay. And if somebody's in a position where they're not happy, they will try and bring other people into this feeling. You'll see it all the time in your life. So wherever those conflicts and differences are happening, that needs to be removed from the team, and it needs to be handled behind the scenes. There's different ways that you can do that, right? With approaching people separately, putting them together, discussing out, but whatever is happening, that needs to be removed from the team and handled behind the scenes so that it doesn't affect the operations of people that are like on the front lines.
All right. How can you hold somebody responsible for their tasks without authority?
Yeah. Okay. So this comes down to expectations, right? So when you say holding people responsible, what are you measuring them on? Do they know what they're being measured on? Do you know what they're being measured on? Do you agree on that? What is expected of them? Did they know what was expected of them from the start? Did they know what to expect from you? And are you executing on that? Are you communicating with that person in a way that they like to be communicated with? All of these things need to be established before you can put that into place. Otherwise, you're just going to be shooting in the dark. So first of all, you need to understand that everybody knows what's expected of them, whether it comes to job description, roles and responsibilities, their OKRs, meetings that they're expected to attend, deadlines for when they're expected to have those deliverables shipped, because then you have a 0 point to work from. Second of all, you need to make sure that you communicate with them in a way that's going to be effective. I used to have this, we'll call him Jake. His name's not Jake. This guy that used to work for me. And anytime I put him in a room by himself, even if I was telling him excellent job on what he'd done, he would freak out. He would just like panic. I could see him shaking. I couldn't put him in a room by himself. So anytime I had to give him feedback or try and get his thoughts to go down a path that I wanted him to go down, I'd have to put him in a completely relaxed environment. I used to take him to the gym, right? We'd go and work out together. This was in BC, and put him into a point where he's completely relaxed. And then I'd just ask him questions about what he's delivering on. I wouldn't just accuse him of what's happening. So I just get him to remind me, when was the deadline for the project? What was it being measured on? Have you been able to reach that? What's the reason that you have not been able to reach that? Is there anything that you need from me to help you get there? Because what we're trying to do here is get to the root of the problem of why that is not being delivered on. And then we come to a fair decision on where to go from there, whether it be extending a deadline, whether it be that we need to continue this deadline, that the metrics need to be increased, whatever it is. And once you've established that and you both have agreed that there's nothing getting in the way of that, you need to both agree that that's a fair expectation. If you both agree on that, you need to agree of what may happen if that isn't seen, if that isn't put through. Right now, we don't need to go into details on that, but it's going to be a matter of we both agreed on this deadline, we've both agreed on the deliverable, and we both agreed that if it doesn't happen by this time, we need to have another conversation. But we've also given them an opportunity to present you with any blockers or things in the way. They may just say, my computer's failing and I need another computer. Perfect. Now we know the answer to that. But yeah, long answer again, but the short answer is the expectations need to be put in place, and you both need to agree that they're fair, and you both need to agree on the next steps if you're not able to deliver on it.
All right. How can you avoid or solve misunderstandings due to cultural differences or a language barrier?
Yeah, these are challenges in the world that are fairly new for everybody, right? I mean, I was pretty fortunate in the earlier part of my career when I was in the army, where we're working with people from different cultures and different languages and things was part of everyday life. Usually the most important things in life, people are perfectly aligned on. Okay. For the majority of people, we're not walking around as psychopaths, right? We all have family values. We all have friends. We all kind of lead with love. We're aligned on the most important things in life. Usually the differences are how we execute on that. Some people from certain places will be very suspicious. I'm British. I'm from the UK. Okay. We're very suspicious on our little island, considering that we go out drinking Belgian beer and then come home getting an Indian takeaway on the way home, watching American TV shows and all this. We're very suspicious of other things. But you'll get some people that are maybe very direct, because that's how they typically act. You get some people that are very family orientated. And so what you need to do is find out what you're aligned on. And it comes to adjusting to people, right? Or making people understand why people may be different in their approach to things. So if somebody's having trouble with somebody, say from a different place because of how they act, or maybe like a cultural difference will come up or something, it's good to have a conversation with the person that's having the struggle, and then ask them what the reasons may be that the other person is acting different. And I say ask them these questions, don't tell them, because people need to go through this thought process themselves. So what's the reason you think? And I always say, what's the reason? I never say why. The reason I always say, what's the reason, is because it's not accusatory. When you ask somebody why they did something, instantly they'll defend themselves. If you ask them what's the reason that they did something, they're more likely to talk about their strategy, and they're more like excited to explain the reason to you. So ask them what's the reasons that they maybe do things in certain ways, what's the reasons that they maybe communicate in some ways, or what's the reasons that they've executed things in some ways. And the person that you're asking that question to will start to unwrap that themselves. Okay, well, this person is from this place, and I know they're very family orientated, or typically this is what happens with the way that people from this place like to operate. And when they start to unpack that themselves, they're more prepared to handle it, and they're more willing to adjust how they're going to communicate with this person, understanding what to expect. If you just tell them things, people are resistant to that because they don't want to change. So you get two people that are now butting heads. But when you ask people what the reasons are for things and they can unpack it themselves, they're more likely to demonstrate some empathy.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it takes a level of patience to do that, and actually approaching like individuals to understand that. And
Right.
that's what I found. I mean, like the human coordination aspects of DAOs, it's people coming from different parts of the world. But yeah, take the time to do that and understand and have those conversations and really understand that character as a whole. But I find like a good medium where whatever's being communicated doesn't come across as like aggressive or negative either, because we've seen some of those things happen in like multiple communities too. So not an anomaly. But yeah, it is difficult, a really difficult part.
It's something you're going to have to revisit. And you guys got to remember as well that as long as the direction, as long as the end point that you're trying to get to is the same, you guys are united. You want the same thing. All that's happening is along the way, some people may disagree on what route to take up the mountain, but ultimately you're all trying to get to the same place.
All right. I saw that Adrian actually raised his hand. So I'm just gonna bring him to the panel. I don't know if you want to say anything, Adrian. Welcome.
Hey, Terry, thank you. That was amazing.
Hi,
So I just wanted to maybe conclude, like we have just 1 minute, I think, before we wrap up here. So, in this example that Terry used, Shackleton, of course, applies to all of you, okay, in terms of you have to be the captains, but it also applies to Covalent too, right? And in that sense, you are the crew. So, and it's up to us as Shackleton to present to you a very clear plan that this is the plan to land, right? This is the way that we all need to go, and inspire you and deliver, all those things that Terry said as well, like to show you that that is the right way. Now, of course, now if we switch, and if you guys buy into that, then y'all will follow us, and everyone will do exactly what they are supposed to in the team, right? We saw some people were getting ice, and then there were some others who were maybe engineers who were repurposing tools, and the other people, doing different things, including doing something mysterious with a pipe, which we don't know what exactly that was. But anyway, you now in the role of Shackleton will have to inspire your teams within the guilds, right? And there may be other people who have another plan. They say, hey, instead you're saying go to land for safety, but we say we should wait here by the wreckage of the ship because somebody else will come. And there's a mutiny because maybe there's 3 other people who want to stay with that person. And that's exactly what Terry is saying. That's fine, that they are maybe on the wrong bus. They have a different plan, they have a different strategy, okay? But if we're all agreed that the best way is to get to the land, then everything will, it might take 2 years or whatever that time period. But I think those people forever achieve that honor, and their place in history, not just Shackleton, but that whole team, including the dogs, right? We're talking about it today. And so it's a very inspiring story, and I think very appropriate to us. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Adrian.
Yeah, so we're at time. Thank you for answering all the questions. We had great ones come in. And yeah, I just want to thank you so much for putting that presentation together. I think it's helped a lot of our leaders who are on this call and who it's catered to, and anybody coming into that position who wants to dabble into that. But yeah, we'll continue seeing how we can do more of these workshops where we actually gather expertise from our team members and share it with you all, and appreciate the time that you guys took in coming to and for presenting these awesome questions and feedback. But yeah, thank you, Terry, and thanks to our team members, Adrian and Pratik, for coming, for Arya, and for setting this up too. Yeah, have a great rest of the amazing day.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.
Thank you, Terry.